Okay, so this is the overall chart for the seminar. I hope you see it. The topic is essential wisdom for solving society's biggest issues. And that's really what we're about in the background, is the big monster issues for society. And the first session, we talked about how powerful facilitation is, that it's not a top-down strategy or a bottom-up strategy. It's something that we can set in motion. And then we talked about choice creating. And in the second session, well, in the first session, we had a wish for society, and I had the monster wish, which was that all people face the monster issues creatively together and achieve breakthrough progress, where the people provide wise leadership to governments, and where this new we the people conversation results in higher levels of awareness, understanding, and consciousness among all. So that was the monster wish. And now that we've talked about choice creating, that allows us to change the monster wish. Really, now what we're talking about is that we, just us, could convene and facilitate an ongoing whole system choice creating conversation at the national level and at the global level. So there's a substitution that I'm making, and I'm assuming that the monster wish really encompassed the wish that you all have. But now that if we can set this choice creating conversation in motion at the whole system level, that's really a we the people conversation, where we're coming up, where we're facing these problems and having breakthrough solutions, and each of us is affected by the process. So if it's possible for you and I, or whoever, we could talk somebody else into doing it, to set in motion this ongoing whole system choice creating conversation, especially at the global level, gosh, that's kind of the global governance that people are looking for. And the key piece in all of this is dynamic facilitation, the ability to facilitate, to elicit choice creating as the quality of thinking. So that's kind of the backdrop for what we're doing. And then I'm gonna, when I come back here at some point, so we're going through this list of essential wisdom items, and at some point we're going to talk about specific action steps, not that maybe that we would take, but that we might advocate for or begin to get our arms around, that, my God, that could really work. And now our monster wish has changed to be this ongoing whole system choice creating conversation. And then when we start talking about the results get ridiculous. It's so, I mean, if all of us could actually be in that conversation, it affects everything. It affects our collective choices, our individual choices. It affects economics. It affects governance. It affects civic society, civil society. So this is kind of the backdrop for our conversation today. And I keep reminding us that really, I mean, it gets exciting on the one hand, and then really disheartening when it's hard to bring it forward for people. Like when we start talking about it, or at least when I've been talking about it, it's really hard for people to make that leap, to realize, oh my God, this could actually work. So, and then, so we're talking, when we talk dynamic facilitation, we're really talking at this small group level generally. Like, how does a meeting work? How does dynamic facilitation work for a small group? And it also works at the personal level. Like, we can do this for an individual in a therapy setting, or we can do it for ourselves. And that I can show you a little bit about how to do that if you're interested. And then later, in the next two sessions, we talk about the wisdom council process, how this could happen at the large system level, the community level. And we've done examples of the wisdom council process in Port Townsend, for instance. So we've got some history here at the food co-op and in the city and so forth. And we've got some videos from that. And then society's breakthrough part's a little spooky part because it's just hard for people to get, it's so big. It seems impossible, but that's the fifth session is how could we really transform society? How could that actually work? And maybe we wouldn't be the ones doing it, but maybe we the ones to help others understand that this can happen. For instance, at the national level, if you're just stuck in this partisan battle, if you're just stuck there, gosh, how do you get out of it? Well, it seems like there's no way, in this case, there is a way, but if there's one or two senators that's going to block things, then it seems like you're just sort of blocked. But but there is another way. There is another way, and that is to establish a clear voice of we the people that people resonate to. They all go, yeah, that's what we want. And what we found in Austria especially and other countries is that the legislators like this. They want to stop, to get out of their partisan bubble and begin to start thinking about what's best for everybody. And then when we do dynamic facilitation, it's a different animal. The facilitator is not really there in a way. The facilitator, Jim, if I'm facilitating, has left the room. My views, my opinions, my perspectives are they're not here. I am serving the group and helping the group to solve their problem. And that problem may shift or change, may grow. And so when I do dynamic facilitation, I try and set the room up in a half circle as much as possible. And it's facing 4 charts. And we talk in a creative way so that the only possible result is unity.
Yeah. Yeah. I wondered if the Black Lives Matter movement was an example of what you are talking about here, because it started out with just a few individuals who identified a major issue, and by some of the actions that police have taken around the country, they built a movement out of it. Other groups, Black Lives Matter, formed around the country. It's been, I think, kind of a loose organization, but with a lot of dialogue in many different places, became more and more focused in what their demands were. And I'm wondering if this is an example of such a process that's been carried out over several years.
Wow, thank you. I want to answer your question by drawing a little bit. To me, you and I, we live inside a box. And this box is about decision making. So out of this box comes policy. And there's a competition. How we do this decision making is a competition. Or you can talk about it as a pendulum also, but and so there are all these conversations, or in other words, Black Lives Matter arose. We don't really have the conversation. The conversation we need here is a big X. It's really a crappy conversation. The conversation going into this decision making is crappy. We have to wait till there's some kind of crisis, like where George Floyd, the guy kneels on his neck for 9.5 minutes, and everybody gets it, that this was like murder. And so finally, we get a crisis. Oh, good. Now this issue can be raised, and we can go, and what do? We go demonstrate in the streets, and we paint the streets Black Lives Matter. And we stomp around the, around and go on to MSNBC and whatever and say, but it's going to die out. Pretty soon the crisis will die out and we won't have this conversation that got created anymore. And so, but there's this partisan debate about trying to make policy decisions, because our whole system is dependent on policy. So one of the difficulties is this word decision. When you do decision making, you're cutting away. That is the whole dynamic. Let me use a different color. The whole dynamic of this system that we live inside is cutting away. We cut away the minority. We cut away our feelings. We cut away our intuition. The whole system is about cutting away. So we can have this, we got a brief moment to have the conversation. It's not a good conversation. It's a horrible conversation. You have to go write. You have to write in the streets in chalk, and you have to risk maybe getting hurt going on demonstrations and stuff. It's a really crappy conversation, and we end up with this cutting away process. And the best that can come out is policy. And I think everybody knows that racism is not going to end with some policy change. It's not going to. Policy is not adequate for dealing with racism. It helps, but it's just one small itty bitty little bit of what we need to be doing. So what I'm saying is that a whole nother way of talking and carry is that if all of us somehow were, okay, yeah, it's off the chart. If all of us were somehow in one conversation that was heartfelt, and where we're listening, and we're all seeking what's best for all, and we're being creative in getting there. And what we're going to come up with is an action plan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and down here somewhere might be policy. Policy is minor. It's not that important. But if we were to really talk about racism and really deal with that issue, it would be a different conversation. And we would come up with, it would be the process of talking and sharing that would be transformational to individuals and to our whole system, so that we would then provide responsible leadership to corporations, to all consumers, to all. There's a whole lot of collective choices that could be made that our system does not allow us to even consider. So that's kind of my sense of it. Is the Black Lives Matter thing. I celebrate what they're doing. Like when I play basketball, yeah, we want to win the game, but there's a space outside of the game that is where real life is. And so I celebrate good plays within the game. When somebody makes a great play or whatever, that's super, but that's not life. So yes, I celebrate the Black Lives Matter thing, but I think that if we really were to work on the problem, then you and I right here are doing the real work of trying to transform that system, not transform, get rid of that. In other words, we live in the box, I get that. But it's not the whole thing. What needs to happen is there needs to be this ongoing whole system, choice creating conversation, just moments where we stop and reflect and think at the choice creating level about what's really going on about race, about immigration, about nuclear energy, whatever. And we come to shared conclusions as a whole system, as a collective of people. And then we go back into real life and we do that thinking again. And we go back into real life and we do that thinking again. And what happens is at first, this is real life. And this is some kind of little interlude. We're just taking a little break. But once we get going, we get it. This is real life. This is real life. And the box is the interlude. The whole machination to come up with policy is the break. I mean, that's just one little thing we're doing. So thank you, Dean, for that question or that thought. I really appreciate that. So turning our attention to dynamic facilitation for the moment, first thing is that there are a number of possible problems that we might work on. And some of them might be, hey, we can't do anything about that. These are the impossible seeming ones. And that's the kind of issue that is well suited for dynamic facilitation and choice creating. So we want the high care issue, and we don't want to bother people about whether it's possible or not to solve it. All right, so, and then when we set up the room, what we're setting up the room is, here's this mess that we've selected, and we want to set people up facing this mess in a half circle. So that's the organizational arrangement. And there's going to be a dynamic facilitator. And then what we're going to do is have the way this is the mess, if you will. And there's the DFer. And these are the participants. And these people are basically working on this problem, and it's done through 4 charts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And basically these charts have a place for anything anybody says. And the dynamic facilitator, his or her job is to assure that the quality of thinking, as much as possible, stays creative and collaborative, and that's why we have the 4 charts. Okay, so this has got 4 charts, and the charts are solutions, concerns, data, and problem statements. And then the way we proceed is we just go with the dynamic energy that people have. So we start with an issue, some monster issue, and somebody describes the issue. And sometimes I call it the mess statement. And we just describe the mess. And then however people respond, we try and capture that. So if often people say, they have a solution. That's often comes out first. And so we help them articulate their solution, but it might not come out first. It might just be a concern about terrorism that just goes on, or it could be, we have to get rid of, corporate personhood, and the Constitution, or whatever it is. There's a lot of people are walking around with a solution in their back pocket, And that's what they're working on. And we want to bring that out first. We want them to purge, we call it the purge, whatever it is that they're sitting on. And often it's a solution. Sometimes it's just some piece of data, like, my husband left me, or it might be some, concern about society. So what we're trying to do is capture the heart of what they're saying, however they say it. We actually restructure it, but however they're thinking about it, I guess I mean to say. And so that goes in the 4 charts. And as we are talking, there are shifts and breakthroughs that happen. And it's the facilitator, it's the dynamic DFer to recognize those shifts and breakthroughs. So, and they come out in different ways. Like sometimes they come out as a new formulation, a new clarity about what's really going on or what's really happening. And to me, this is the antidote to the fake news. It's like, this is how truth gets created, is that we're all talking in one conversation, and that's the wisdom council process, but in the dynamic facilitation, and we come to a shared understanding about what the truth is. And we come to some shared understanding about what our task is. So this is the perception building, I call it, or truth birthing, as someone in the wisdom council in Santa Cruz called it, the birthing of truth. I love that. So, but then sometimes, there's a birthing of our mission, of what's the real problem? What are we really trying to do here? And the real problem, in my mind, isn't getting Black Lives Matter legislation to pass. It's to transform the system so we get out of this decision-making system, which is always going to have prejudice because we cut away the minorities. So, and sometimes the breakthroughs are actual innovations, like a new idea that we hadn't thought of before, or some combination of things that we want to make happen. Or there's a coming together where we didn't like this person and now we like them, and there's a sense of trust. So that's the way it proceeds, Kevin. But we're not setting it up to get options and then choosing the options. That's decision making. We are involved in a creative, juicy process, and shifts happen, and then we kind of know which way what happens is the data and the problem and the solutions and the concerns somehow shift into some kind of new alignment, and we have a new sense of what's going on. And then out of that, we can write. The meeting might be over at that time. Maybe we didn't get a final answer, but we have a sense of courses of what we want to do, what we're going to do going forward. And we didn't do judgment. We didn't set up for judgment, which is what the existing system does. So to me, there's different levels of self-organization that are out there. And anybody who's working with self-organization is a facilitator. But there's different levels of thinking. So in my mind, the facilitators, and there's different levels of capability of addressing problems. So if we're going to be in kind of the critical thinking mode, that's really the first level of self-organization, if you will. It's kind of like where the people you're facilitating get it. So they're like a teacher does that. And then there's the systems thinking level where kind of traditional facilitation where you help people to agree on the goals ahead of time and agree on the guidelines and kind of help people march through a problem solving method. These are all good stuff, especially good stuff when the problem is, that's the problem we face. Like if we're trying to improve policy, then we're down in this level. And then there's the creative level, which is brainstorming and setting up a vision, and then saying, like, for instance, if what's this bumper sticker, you know, where you see all the time, visualize world peace, or you saw that one, or you know, global, act local, think global, you know, that somehow or other the thinking global is going to make this local action get happening in the global arena, which is a real thing. I mean, that really does happen when we think in a fractal setting. We think at the local level, and we think globally and act locally. It can do that, but the other is to somehow facilitate the actual the thinking, where the whole thinking process, the whole person actually leaves the meeting transformed. That's the other kind of thinking. That's what dynamic facilitation, people come in and their head and heart, and so they feel transformed, the group feels transformed, the whole system is transformed. And it's not me transforming it, it's nobody doing that. It's just the self-organizing dynamic makes that happen. So does that help, Kevin? Does that?
I am thinking from a concept of facilitating, the differences between facilitating within the system, which you know, poses its own challenges, and that's the space that I traditionally occupy professionally.
Yeah.
To a more open source type of plan, like you're suggesting here, that I think is very attractive to me in the role that I have as a community commissioner in the town I live in. So if we're talking about Port Townsend, or we're talking about Edmonds, and we have groups of people who are polarized and very upset about the concept of community growth and what that means. That might look the same or different if you're talking about Port Townsend or Edmonds. Those are very real, wicked issues at a very localized level. So I'm very curious about getting more into the meat of this concept.
I mean, people who are doing that kind of facilitation are tremendously skilled, and it's exciting to watch. And I'm not one of those people. I mean, I stay in the realm of choice creating, but I admire and respect the work that's happening at within the system. I mean, it's really a different planet.
Hey, Jim, I think Maggie has a question.
Maggie?
Yeah, hi Jim, thanks. I'm feeling the need for a sort of story of how dynamic facilitation worked out in terms of delivering a collective solution for folk, you know, in a concrete example, rather than the theory of how it works. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Like, what kind of issue, Maggie, do you have in mind?
Well, I was thinking, I know in Karina's community they had an issue with the railway, where there was a whole group of people who wanted it to be, you know, freight train, and other people didn't want the train. They wanted it to be a bike walkway, and I don't know how dynamic facilitation actually got them to a resolution. That is the how of it. How did that happen? Did it happen through dynamic facilitation that kind of tug of war situation got resolved?
Yes. Okay. Well, that might be good. We could talk about that. And Karina's on the phone, so Karina can talk. What, Karina? Maybe you could talk about it. In fact.
I can just say quickly that the amazing thing, I'd never been a silent witness on a day and a half of a group of citizens being dynamically facilitated on that subject. And the amazing thing to watch was that generally people, when they first hear about the issue, wouldn't it be lovely to have a train along that coastline and see the Monterey Bay and all? And as they went through it, they arrived at unity that actually it makes most sense to have a multimodal transit corridor, not fixed rails, so that you can use the corridor, but you can whip up to the university and you can whip up to the hospital and you can whip up to the community college. And that's where they came out. And probably one of the most magical things, when one of the Wisdom Council people was interviewed, she said, now Jim knows this, the reason why you have 1.5 days of a Citizens Wisdom Council, partly, is that people sleep on it after being dynamically facilitated for 3 hours to begin with. So one of the people in the council said, I didn't realize till afterwards that we all came in a bit guarded and armored and with our own view of what we thought was important and what we felt strongly about. And then after we got dynamically facilitated and slept on it, we came back into that room with a whole different energy, like we had already shifted. So it's a little hard to describe the magic, but the one in Austria that I love the best is where the Citizen Council flipped the whole blueprint of a industrial development that would have taken away the lakeside. And in the council, they said, well, wait a minute, isn't that our biggest asset as a community? Why couldn't the industrial complex be up the back of the town and we keep the lakeside for all of us? And everybody agreed, even the developers.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'll fill in a little bit to help. I think building on what you said, Karina. First of all, about the rail and trail, the choice is that the county, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the county had bought the rail right of way for the railroad, and for 10 years they had been fighting about whether it should be a rail and trail or just a trail. Really went from one end of the county to the other. 10 years of fighting. And it was in each county has a transportation department. And the big worry, I mean, one of the big issues is providing people transportation to relieve the traffic. So we have there's the traffic. I'm not going to write what I normally do, but just reminders. There's the traffic is a mess. So this is my data chart, and the rail is purchased. Rail line is purchased, and so we write just stuff, just data. This is data. And the problem statement is which one to choose. Just the rail and trail, or just the trail. And so there were solutions. One solution possibility is keep the rail. And the other possibility was keep the rail and trail. And the other was just make it a trail, just the trail.
And I'll say that it does seem binary when you begin.
Right. And so that's the way and that's the argument that has been happening. And so politically, two camps got set up. one was for the rail and trail, one, and that was a lot of the businesses, the rail, and the other was for the trail, and it's became a fight within the county traffic commission. And it turns out that there were other factors that were big, like there was a $10 million that was retrievable from the state, and on other stuff made it complex. But the breakthrough, well, the group really came down to two shifts, I guess. One shift was, we could keep let's just get going with the trail and add the rail later, which means a big sacrifice of $10 million. But that's what they said. It's nothing. I mean, it's an investment that we make in the future. And the big breakthrough was this, was in the realm of data, is that this conversation has not been happening.
And that the real conversation isn't about transportation. It's about community quality of life.
It's not about transportation. It's about quality, right? Life quality. So that was really the big shift. And so their recommendation was to go with the trail, forfeit the money, and add, see what develops, because it might not be rail. See what develops, because this community, and a lot of talk about this community, is innovative. So we're going to develop, once that trail's there, people will do stuff. They'll have little personal transformation, and they'll have blah, 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 all kinds of things like that. And the other piece is, we need to start the missing conversation. That is, even though they've been going back and forth for 10 years of yes, no, agree, disagree, that's the other conversation. That's the decision-making conversation, and that's not the one that's needed. The one that's needed is the choice-creating conversation, where we're all involved trying to figure out what is best for the community. And that conversation hasn't even started yet. The other thing, and then when the Wisdom Council presented to the community, this was a first for me. I'd never seen this before. The only people in the community were the people on the left and on the right. No, there were no actual community people. They were just stakeholders. And it was really, to me, it was like, wow, this is weird. And so we're not going to change anybody's mind, really. But I think what we did is, the people who were in the rail and trail camp got it, that we could do this 10 times and we get something similar. In other words, this is the answer, not the, I mean, there is the answer, rather than, rather than it being always the fight. We're not going to win this fight, in a way. We're not going to win this so we have to keep it in the fight. We could win a fight, but we can't win we can't win if it's going to be an actual conversation. So does that help, Maggie?
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Hey, Jim, you've got a couple of people with hands up on if you look on your screen. So
Okay, good. I didn't see. Yeah. Okay, now I'm back. Yeah.
How can you come in contact? How can you come in conversation? Makes no difference on the human or animal side. Yeah, is there somebody who has an idea how to make the first step into this closed system?
So to me, you've got this mess of the medical system,
Yes.
okay? And data, no one's interested in actual healing. They are just interested in
Selling drugs.
selling drugs.
And they do not take care. They do not take care if they are maybe they do not are not compatible. If the dogs are not compatible.
If
they are compatible.
Yeah, if the dogs are uncomfortable, dog is uncomfortable.
So
okay, well, I'm going to cut you short, but that's the idea. What I would do is start just work it on yourself. Just work for yourself. These are data, see, and your concern obviously is something that your concern is for the well-being and of the dog, well-being of the dog,
or the humans or whatever, yes.
or the humans. But the other concern that seems to keep coming in is that the system isn't working.
The system does not permit this.
Yeah, doesn't permit healthy attitude or health orientation.
This is because drugs are the turnover.
Right. So you've got two problem statements here. One is about the dog. How do I protect and support my dog? I'm not doing it right. But then the other one is, how do I facilitate a change in the system?
Yeah.
And it's okay to work on both of them at the same time, but then you're going to start up with your answers, okay? And you can, and as you go through, come up with one answer. One is you can go talk to so-and-so, and the other one is, set up a wisdom council process.
They're not interested.
Well,
the people are with whom they are not interested. They are not interested. They're even not interested to read about this.
Okay, so I'm going to read.
So they give a little flyer and say, please read.
So they aren't interested. And what you're really saying is that they don't own the problem.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Okay, so they don't own the problem yet. Let's just call it yet, because so how to help them own this problem. I mean, in other words, this is how we freeze it. We just keep going, okay? And then eventually, you're going to have down here at the end, you're going to have of courses. I mean, you won't maybe finish, but this is what I'm going to do. And you'll have a sense of it just yourself.
Yes, so to change the system, this is a big system. There's a lot of money inside.
Okay, so you're in a class right now about how to change the global system, global economics, governance, the whole mess. You're in a class right now learning about that. So now you're talking. Don't tell me this other one's too big. I'm stopping facilitating. That's my comment. Oh, you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to show you this little video. This is a real short little video, and I think you'll appreciate it. It came out of the Wisdom Council that we did in, there it is. That's the video. This was out at our Wisdom Council in Asheville, North Carolina. We just did a Wisdom Council experiment. And this is very short, but it was the reaction. We were having an interview session with the Wisdom Council participants to ask them how it went for them at the dynamic, after the dynamic facilitation.
And my question is, to be pretty direct about it, is did all of you feel completely free to speak your mind? Or at some points did you go, yeah, well, I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable, or I don't want to be the outlier here, or, you know, we've only got a day to do this, and why complicate, anything like that that holds you back from saying completely what you were thinking about this?
For me, after I gave my first, statement when we first got started last night, at first I was a little nervous. I was like, ooh, I'm the youngest here. I'm this, I'm that. I'm so different from, obviously different from everybody else up here. Just what's going through my mind. But then once I spoke and how engaged not only was Jim into what I had to say, but it seemed like everybody genuinely wanted to hear what I had to say. And once I got it out, I've never felt so free to open my mouth and be myself.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that was, I can't describe how it feels. It's just like, wow, man, really, You might catch me saying gnarly in a minute. That's just how cool it was.
I hope you could hear that. She was so impactful. So, and the one guy to her right, the first thing he said in that was how much he was against gays and how the gays were the problem in society. So everybody, the other questions were, his question was really, how did you guys do it? How did you get the journalist's question? He was there, so he was asking, how did you guys come together?
Jim, is there more from the Asheville that we could see on our own?
There is.
Is there a link or
not posted
something?
alone, but I could post it, I guess. I could post
Okay.
it as an unlisted thing. You could see, sure. Anyway, the journalist, Jeff Golden, he was asking, really, how the hell did you come together after that first statement? So, yeah. Well, we've done it again. We're going to talk about the Wisdom Council process next time. And I really am happy that you're here and going through this with me. I hope you've, I think it's really exciting. It's a new thing for me to be able to share it. So I'm very excited about that. So.
Cool. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, guys.
Yay!
Yes. Yay.